everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Stellar Development Foundation's Q2 2023 Quarter in Review. I'm Carolyn Yee, Senior Comms Manager at SDF, and we have a lot to cover and a great group of SDF leaders to take us through everything as usual. So first, our CEO and Executive Director, Denelle Dixon, is going to recap some noteworthy highlights from Q2 and remind us of our 2023 roadmap. Then we'll have Justin Rice, VP of Ecosystem, go over network stats for the quarter and touch on what we're doing to make innovation easy and scalable. Denelle will also review what we did to win over builders, and Jordan Edelstein, our CMO, will highlight what we've done this quarter to build utility and trust. And we're also going to leave some time at the end for your questions, so please remember to submit them throughout the call using the Q&A menu option in Zoom. So that's the agenda. Denelle, over to you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. It's hard to believe we're already halfway through 2023. So much has been done, yet there's still so much more to do. That's kind of the story of our lives at SDF. Time moves quickly, and as we continue to make as much progress as we can to support the growth and development of the network, it's nice to take the opportunity to recap some of our recent wins as the SDF and also as the ecosystem. So to set the scene, let's remind ourselves of the 2023 roadmap for SDF, where utility is our core focus. These are the three building blocks that will help take us through Stellar's utility to the next level. First, we're making innovation easy and scalable on the network. One way we're doing this right now is by helping to set a new smart contract standard in decentralized finance. Second, we are more focused than ever on winning over builders. We need to continue to solve problems for them and show them how they can leverage Stellar in their work and leverage Stellar in an easy and scalable way. And finally, the third, proving out utility to build trust. This requires proactive engagement with policymakers and influencers to make sure SDF and Stellar are seen as credible and reliable. So let's take a look back at some of the highlights from the quarter. Q2 was all about Soroban in many ways, and Justin will cover the progress on that in detail in just a moment. But in addition to all the exciting work that is moving forward there, we celebrated our 1 year of MoneyGram access in June. That's 1 year of new utility that connects cash and digital assets, addressing the last mile problem for both those in the cash economy, as well as those looking to do more with their money. And as we've seen since its launch, it continues to prove its value in new contexts, helping to power solutions like Stellar Aid Assist. And I just have to say, as a side note, it's been so fun to watch the new wallets that are coming on to MoneyGram access and to see the excitement around that as well. Franklin Templeton's on-chain US government money fund, powered by the Stellar network, surpassed 270 million in assets under management as of April and continues to grow. It's up to almost 300 million as of today. Soroban preview releases 9 and 10 were completed since the last quarterly webinar. These set the stage for mainnet launch. Although preview release 10 technically happened after the Q2 cutoff, we're going to talk about it a bit today because what we're doing with it is significant. More on that from Justin in just a bit. Event activations at industry events like Consensus and the Digital Currency Conference presented us with opportunities to make ecosystem activity visible with key audiences. Our 5th annual Meridian Conference is approaching in September, and we've been rolling out registration and program updates. You should make plans to join us there if you haven't already, because you won't want to miss this one. It's going to be a lot of fun. And the Soroban Adoption Fund is firing on all cylinders, having paved a path for developers and builders to step further into their Soroban journeys with each engagement. Again, more on this in a bit, but one highlight from this quarter definitely had to be seen: 184 submissions and $3.2 million worth of lumens awarded through the Stellar Community Fund. It's just wonderful to see the growth in the SCF. So I'm going to hand it over to Justin for now to walk us through network stats and building block one. Justin.
Thanks, Denelle. Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Rice, VP of Ecosystem, and I'm here to report on some key network stats and to give an update on what we've done this quarter to make innovation easy and scalable. So we will start with a look at the numbers. First, let's check in on network activity and growth. The first metric is total accounts. In Q2, total accounts surpassed 7.5 million, which was up by 8.8% year over year. Second metric is the total number of payments. There were 71 million payments compared to 90 million in the same quarter last year. The average daily DEX volume this quarter was almost 11 million lumens worth per day, which is a decrease from Q2 last year when the average daily DEX volume was about 38 million lumens worth per day. But that decrease, it kind of tracks with the broader market downturn. Now, as far as raw network activities go, for this, we can look at total operations processed in order to get a sense. Operations on Stellar are kind of like transactions, right? They're any function that changes the ledger state. They include payments, but also buy and sell orders, depositing into liquidity pools, that kind of thing. In Q2, we saw a 26% year-over-year increase with the network processing over 1 billion operations. So that is a 3-quarter streak now for over 1 billion operations processed in a quarter, which is something that we love to see. A lot of activity on the network. Next, let's look at the metrics for relevant assets. So relevant assets, we define relevant assets as assets that are tethered to real financial instruments. So think fiat currencies like Mexican pesos or US dollars. By tracking these assets, we get a good indication of how well Stellar is actually connecting global financial systems. In Q2, the number of relevant assets we track, it stayed consistent year over year. There are 79 assets on our list. The on-network transaction volume of relevant assets actually grew 31% year over year. So higher volume of transactions with stablecoins and other real-world assets, that is a good trend. Increasingly, the network connects the global financial system. Perfect. The last set of metrics measures the decentralization of the network. So decentralization plays a critical role in the health and success of the network. And so we continue to monitor both the number of nodes and the average ledger close times just to see how the network is holding up to the increase in traffic. So first, we will look at the tier 1 validator nodes, the number of those. These are nodes that are run by organizations that have a high level of network trust. So they are essential to network health and resilience. They're in a lot of quorum sets. Right. Currently, the network has 24 tier 1 validator nodes, and outside of tier 1, there are 120 total nodes on the network. Reliably and as expected, ledgers continue to close in a little over 5 seconds. That's by design. But I always feel good saying that because that means the network can handle 1 billion operations per quarter. No sweat. Very good. That's it for the stats. But now let's turn to building block 1, which is focused on making innovation easy and scalable. As many of you can probably guess, this quarter was all about Soroban, the brand new batteries included smart contracts platform that is built for scale, that combines Stellar's global access with an immense surface area for innovation, thereby opening up new opportunities for developers to build the next generation of financial products and services. So where are we with Soroban Development? We're getting very close to mainnet launch, people, very close. This quarter, there were 2 preview releases, each of which implemented key design decisions made in collaboration with the vibrant ecosystem of Soroban devs. We'll talk a bit more about that collaboration later. But first, what went into those preview releases? Crucially, preview release 9 introduced multi-dimensional metering and fees, which is actually a pretty huge development. Why do I say it's a huge development? So most smart contracts platforms, they have a one-size-fits-all approach to fees, right? You pay the same no matter what your contract does, no matter what kind of resources it uses, no matter how much of each resources it consumes. So on those platforms, a contract that like calls a host function for complex computations pays the same fee as a contract that just like does simple arithmetic, even though the system cost, right? The cost of all the nodes on the network is a lot higher for one than for the other. So that's not very fair. That's not very efficient. It's a blunt instrument. It's a frying pan. Soroban, on the other hand, it meters contract CPU instructions. It meters RAM, ledger reads and writes, transaction and metadata size, all of that in order to make sure that each fee is right-sized for each and every contract, right? It's very surgical. It's a scalpel. So that level of metering, it ensures fairness, it thwarts resource manipulation and attacks, and it generates a deterministic and reproducible measure of runtime resource costs. And all of that helps Soroban stick with Stellar's design as a platform for payments and as a network that can create equitable access to real-world financial infrastructure. So this novel approach that Soroban is taking to fees is just a lot better, especially for a system like Stellar. That was preview release 9. After that, preview release 10. Preview release 10 introduces a novel solution to an elephant in every blockchain's room. I'm talking about state bloat. State is the current information that's recorded on a blockchain's distributed ledger at a given point in time. So you can kind of picture a spreadsheet. It's got a list of accounts and balances, plus some additional columns for storing smart contract code. That's state. So as more and more accounts, and balances, and contracts are added to the ledger, you're adding more rows and you're adding more columns to the spreadsheet, and the state gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And as the state gets bigger, validator hardware requirements increase because they've got a bigger database to store and manage, and a network's TPS, transactions per second, can actually decrease because it gets harder for validators to find the information they're looking for. So in most blockchains, state is just growing unbounded, and that's not sustainable in the long run. So picture your spreadsheet and it's growing to infinity, and you'll see the problem. At some point, it's just too big. Infinity is too big. So that's a foundational problem, because at some point, that's going to break blockchains. State bloat will break blockchains if it's not dealt with. And that's well known throughout the industry. Everyone knows that it needs to be solved if blockchain is ever going to scale and be successful as a real world system. Now, many networks are trying to address the state bloat problem, but none have really succeeded in implementing a solution quite yet. And in large part, that's because a solution to the root problem, which is to put a boundary on state growth by removing inactive ledger entries, right, is not backwards compatible with what most blockchains have already built. And so adding mechanisms for state to expire would break a ton of smart contracts that have already been written and deployed. So those smart contracts, they were built on the assumption that they'd sit on the ledger forever. You can't change that without breaking them. Now, Soroban, on the other hand, benefits from the second mover advantage, right? It has state expiration from the outset, which means that all Soroban contracts will be designed to be compatible with it. And it does that by introducing different types of storage for ledger entries, right? There's persistent storage for things like balances that are meant to persist. And there's temporary storage for things like payment channels that are going to get closed, or Oracle data that's only valid for a short period of time, things that are meant to be ephemeral. And so allowing devs to determine which one to use for a given contract is what Soroban is doing. And from talking to devs, I've learned that actually being able to think about the type of storage that you want to use has been pretty intuitive and empowering. So generally in non-blockchain environments, developers think about storage. They think about the long-term costs, and getting tools that actually allow them to apply that thinking to their blockchain development. This actually feels right. It's like they had this nagging sense that they were forgetting about something, and now they have tools to deal with it. So come mainnet launch, Stellar will be the first blockchain to employ state expiration to solve for state bloat, proving that it is built for longevity and real-world usability. If you'd like to dig deeper into the state bloat challenge and learn how the Soroban state expiration solution works, check out the developer blog and the video released last week. And with the advent of state expiration, preview release 10 is feature complete. We are now at feature complete. That means that all of the functionality that will, preview release 10 contains all the functionality that will go live when Soroban launches on mainnet. There's still work to be done auditing and hardening the code. There's still work to be done downstream on tools and platform related stuff. But if you are building on FutureNet right now, right, using preview release 10, you're pretty much building on Soroban v1, which is pretty neat. One of the most interesting things to me actually about Soroban development thus far is the fact that it's all been done in the open. So 10 preview releases, definitely unheard of. Since we started last year, ecosystem devs, they've been encouraged to tinker and build. They've been invited to join development and design discussions, and all of that has been happening in public on the Stellar Dev Discord. There have been so many ideas, so many contributions, so much feedback coming in from so many different voices. And even though that level of democratic access is kind of inherently messy, it's been a really wonderful thing to watch. And the result is much, much better. And it came way, way faster than it would have if SDF engineers had tried to build something like this in a silo. It takes a village, people. Speaking of a village, because Soroban has been built in the open, and because ecosystem devs have been hacking away throughout all 10 preview releases, we've actually seen something pretty remarkable happen. A viable ecosystem of smart contracts projects has been built alongside the platform itself. So at this moment, there are over 70 projects building on Soroban that I personally know about, and there are likely many more that I don't, right? Many of these projects, they're fundamental building blocks that stack together to allow others to build more projects. And a lot of them are actually going to be ready on or around mainnet launch. So the projects that I know of, they include oracles, indexers, block explorers, and data analytics tools. They include developer tools like IDEs, SDKs, and RPC services. They include DAOs and tools to build DAOs. And they include DeFi primitives like AMMs and lending and borrowing protocols. They also include wallets that range from general purpose transaction signers to more bespoke interfaces. So kind of everything that you might need, it's being built right now. And for each of those categories, and also for several others, there are actually multiple projects building on Soroban, which means that come mainnet launch, we can expect a thriving ecosystem. So if you are a developer, you don't need to wait for building blocks. They're here right now, ready for you. Now, there's still a chance to be a part of that first wave of developers. You'll be in good company and well equipped to succeed if you join. But blink and you're going to miss it. You will be a second waiver, a new waiver if you don't start now. Are you interested? Do you want to know more? Check out soroban.stellar.org. And with that, I will pass it back over to Denelle to keep things going.
And I don't even know how to continue from that, because it is just so much fun to see what's happening on with Soroban and with the ecosystem that's growing. One of the things that's really hard about building an ecosystem at the same time as you're building a platform is that you kind of have to invite everyone to the party and hope they all show up with all the tools that they need. So the appetizers, the hors d'oeuvres, all the plates that you need to be able to serve. And this is what's happening with Soroban already. So it's really, really, really fun to see it. And I'm so proud of the work that we've done there. So thank you, Justin. Moving along to building block number 2, let's go over what we're doing to win over builders. Part of that work we've also addressed with respect to Soroban and how we've developed and built Soroban with the ecosystem and the community in mind and with them in the open. But the strategic initiatives we're prioritizing here at the SDF also include Soroban adoption, tier 1 assets, and access. So let's go through those. The Soroban Adoption Initiative is all about contributing to a thriving DeFi ecosystem with real sustainable use cases, leveraging smart contracts. With that goal in mind, we continue to push out content and resources to attract developers and to support them as they explore and experiment. Through the Soroban Adoption Fund, a dedicated $100 million envelope within our mandate, we're carving a path for developers to learn, to tinker, and potentially receive awards by participating with the end goal of launching and scaling useful products and services. There have been some fun new ways for builders to get engaged since last quarter. For developers interested in learning, competing, and showing off their chops, Soroban Quest is an interactive starting point for a newcomer's journey. Quest launched RP Siege, a Soroban-focused developer experience geared to stress test the network in preparation for mainnet launch. That's something that folks should really, really engage with. Developers had the opportunity to earn digital collectible playing cards while learning the fundamentals of developing and deploying performant and secure blockchain applications through small, fun code puzzles. Over 14,000 NFT badges were issued in over 200 unique accounts. So continuing on to additional adoption fund programs, in Q2, the Stellar Community Fund received a total of 184 project submissions, I mentioned this earlier, across 3 rounds and awarded 52 projects. In total, over $3.2 million worth of lumens was distributed. It's amazing to be able to offer such consistent and frequent opportunities for developers and startups to get funding to build their Stellar and Soroban projects. We can only do this, by the way, in conjunction with this ecosystem and this community, because the SDF is tiny but mighty, but we also need the community to sort of supercharge and jumpstart everything. So thanks to everyone who participates in that. As a reminder, we've supersized SDF to distribute more awards in support of Soroban and to do it more frequently. Awards now range from $10,000 to $150,000, depending on the size and scope of the project. Cycles run every 4 weeks, so there are consistent and ongoing opportunities to participate. So stay up to date on when new cycles launch on sorobanstellar.org, join the Discord, and get involved if you have an idea. We love your involvement to bootstrap the ecosystem of tools, protocols, dApps, and resources necessary for Soroban to thrive. Don't miss out on coming to the party. So fostering the growth of tier 1 assets on Stellar is another key initiative under this building block. We want to see the world's most used assets represented on the network. Franklin Templeton announcing their on-chain US government money fund surpassed 270 million in April in assets under management was definitely a highlight this quarter. I got to catch up with CEO Jenny Johnson at Consensus about the journey that led to their adoption of blockchain technology. It really is amazing to think back on how we first discovered that they were looking at Stellar just coincidentally, which speaks to the power of open source. We discussed how they brought the first US registered mutual fund using a blockchain to market, which included navigating regulatory requirements and challenges, and why Stellar stood out amongst other options. I encourage you to take a look at that because there's a lot of interesting discussion in that in that interview. They're an example of an institution that understands the importance of interoperability between traditional finance and blockchain, and that this is how we will lead us forward towards a new future of finance. The fund's milestone and continued growth are also a visible reminder that Stellar is indeed evolving traditional financial products and making sure that markets are more accessible for more people. We hope to see more players follow suit. And in fact, we have. They just didn't do that in Q2, or we can't yet talk about it. Next, let's touch on access, which is where we foster development of easy to use, accessible, and cost competitive on and off ramps globally. Last month, Coinbase launched support for deposits and withdrawals of Circle's USDC via the Stellar network. With this launch, Coinbase adds another significant ramp for USDC on Stellar, enabling millions of institutional and retail customers to access a truly global digital dollar. Payment infrastructure company Cado also launched support for USDC on Stellar, leveraging the Anchor platform to bridge their on and off ramps to the network. So now Stellar wallets can offer Cado's global ramp service to users in over 160 countries. And CoinMe, which announced support for USDC on Stellar last quarter, expanded functionality to their mobile apps this quarter, meaning that access to USDC on Stellar now spans all of CoinMe's platforms. So next, let's move on to the Enterprise Fund. The Enterprise Fund made a $1.25 million reinvestment in RTM this quarter. A longtime player in the Stellar ecosystem, RTM is building a digital dollar account with more than 400 payment methods that allows users to send and receive money and make payments and send remittances and more. They're doing important work to enable business growth in Latin America, which also is solving last mile payment for gig workers, contractors, and remote workers in the digital economy. We're pleased to continue to support their mission of helping consumers and businesses access money when they want, wherever they are, while growing the reach of the Stellar ecosystem. So that's it on this building block. I'm going to hand it over to Jordan for the next one. Drop any questions in the Q&A box in the meantime.
All right, thanks, Denelle. Hey, everybody. I'm going to walk through the updates on building block 3, where we focus on utility to build trust. And so our strategic initiatives there include public profile, public policy, and products. Starting with public profile, if you've been following us on social, you've seen we are gearing up for our 5th annual Meridian. We're really excited to bring people together for our 5th edition of the conference. This year is in Madrid, Spain, from September 26th to the 28th. And our theme for the conference this year is unlocking human potential. And so let me go a little bit deeper on that. So I think we at SDF believe our collective human potential is not being fully realized today. And in part, that's because traditional systems generating value often exclude people, but ideas are borderless, opportunity should be too, and blockchain technology can help unlock that human potential and create access to the global financial system, driving opportunity for everyone on the value chain. So we've got actor and UN Goodwill Ambassador Idris Elba opening Meridian, but that's not the only exciting thing on the agenda. We've got sessions planned for developers, entrepreneurs, larger companies, general crypto enthusiasts. We're working hard on pulling together a really engaging program with tons of networking opportunities and a lot more. So registration is open. Tickets are available for purchase. We're really excited. A lot of work going into it. And gosh, it's almost in 2 months. So, but that's not all. We had a really very busy quarter participating in other industry events as well. We started off in unusually rainy weather in Austin, Texas for Consensus 2023, where we drove home the message that the Stellar Network is where real world meets blockchain. We had a really strong branding presence around the event, and our messaging was really well received. So on stage, Denelle spoke alongside the Global Blockchain Business Council and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital about how blockchain can change the landscape of humanitarian aid. And further to that, then Stellar 8 Assist was selected as one of CoinDesk's projects to watch. And so Senior Product Manager Tori Samples represented SDF with an onstage pitch, which I really recommend everyone watch. So head to our YouTube channel, you subscribe while you're there. Look for Tori Samples, Stellar 8 Assist. There's a 5-minute presentation. It's like a clinic on how to present and really gets everything across that is amazing about that product. So then elsewhere, beyond consensus, we had members of our partnerships, product, and policy teams represented at the Digital Currency Conference in Mexico City, which brought together policymakers and regulators to focus on technology and design aspects of both central bank and private digital currencies. So the SDF team participated in panel discussions on financial access, as well as global standards for digital currency designs, and then also led a workshop on real-world tokenization with a live demo, which is always hairy on stage, but it went great, of the asset issuance sandbox on the Stellar network. And then further in the conference, we had a great moment in front of this key audience when we received some recognition. Stellar 8 Assist won Best Innovation in Digital Currency at the Digital Currency Conference Awards. And then speaking of awards, for the second year in a row, FXC Intelligence announced that Stellar had made it to their top 100 cross-border payments list. So every year they track over 15,000 players in the cross-border payment space, and they use the data to determine the top 100 companies who move the needle. And their sanity check on who's on that list is if any player on this list no longer operate in the space, would the sector notice? And for Stellar, the answer was yes. So it's really a testament to the fact that our focus on real world utility since the beginning really does not go unnoticed by the industry. So we were thrilled about that. Then continuing the celebratory theme in June, as Denelle mentioned, we reached the 1-year milestone of MoneyGram's pioneering on and off-ramp access service on the Stellar network, which extends to over 180 countries and 300,000 locations. We're up to 6 wallet partners live, with more in the pipeline. There's one coming very soon. And the solution's been recognized with multiple awards as well. So from FinTech Breakthrough to Paris Blockchain Week, and we've gotten really great top-tier press coverage in outlets like Fortune and Wired. And so as Denelle mentioned, this service really continues to pave the way for really meaningful real-world innovations like Stellar 8 Assist. So mass cash-based aid disbursements powered by Stellar 8 Assist wouldn't be possible without people being able to receive USDC quickly and cash it out in physical fiat at a nearby MoneyGram location. And so to mark the occasion, we put out a new video case study, which details our work together up to this point. You can go check it out on our case studies page if you haven't seen it yet. Now, beyond MoneyGram, we've been focusing on rolling out coordinated communication around the key feature of the Stellar network, which allows everyone with an ID to move funds on and off the blockchain. And I'm talking about the Stellar network's extensive collection of on and off ramps. So at SDF, we talk about this a lot. And these ramps are really what we view as essential infrastructure that solves a real world problem. So if you need a bank account to take advantage of blockchain's benefits, the promise of financial access can't come true. And as far as we're concerned, no other network compares to the reach of the Stellar network's on and off ramps. So we wanted to dedicate some room on our channels to discussing them and why these ramps are so important to achieving our mission. We've been putting out a variety of unified content on the topic of on and off ramps, ranging from educational to just for fun. And by spreading the word about ramps on Stellar and by highlighting the variety of ecosystem players and stakeholders that contribute to this functionality around the world, we're calling attention to the infrastructure that will take the financial system into the future. And so that covers some of the progress we've made on ensuring we're raising public awareness. Let me move to some of the progress we've made on being seen as a reliable, trusted source on policy issues. So the policy team has been hard at work at bringing this to reality. I met extensively with US and international policymakers to discuss SDF's policy priorities in Q2. So in DC, for instance, we presented at the Future of Money Symposium and then just recently participated in a Capitol Hill demo day showcasing Vibrant's cross-border remittance and humanitarian aid functionality. Across the Atlantic in Europe, we gave a keynote at Brussels Blockchain Week, which is a policy-centric industry event on real-world use cases of blockchain technology and participated in a UK City Week panel on stablecoin arrangements. And SDF's head of government relations, Adam Meinhardt, was named a subcommittee member on the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC's Digital Asset Markets Subcommittee. And last but not least, let's take a look at what we achieved in the product category, which is everything we do to ensure the quality of Stellar flagship products. So to start, the Vibrant team focused on fully launching referrals and Quest programs to continue to drive user acquisition and retention. New partner BitWage, which allows employees and freelancers to get paid in USDC and cash out directly into their bank accounts in Argentina, while new Ramp Payfura allows users in Mexico and 10 other countries to on-ramp into Vibrant with their card. So Vibrant saw a 35% increase in monthly active user growth and 40% growth in transaction count quarter over quarter, which is amazing. Onto the Anchor platform, where the team finished integration for hosted deposits and withdrawals, and also worked on multiple other improvements to the platform. And so the Anchor platform code base is actually now available in GitHub. And finally, the Stellar disbursement platform. So last quarter, we mentioned that we had architected the core Stellar disbursement platform, we call it SDP, which never gets confused with SDF, for scale. And so prepping the tool for scale was really the focus. And in Q2, the engineering team finished the development of V2 to make the product use case agnostic, so beyond the humanitarian aid use case, and allow for multiple wallets, assets, and countries. The SDP will be released open source in Q3. And so we've also then developed an SDP hosting model and identified several SDP hosts. And this enables payment processors to host the SDP using a platform as a service model for aid organizations that are not technically equipped to run their own instance of SDP. And we began working with multiple payroll processors interested in using the SDP for digital asset payouts around the world. So a really great quarter focused on that, and we'll have more to talk about when we're back here talking about Q3. So that really rounds out the final building block. Carolyn, I will pass it back to you for Q&A.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks also to Justin and Denelle for all of the updates. So we're going to take questions now. Please remember to keep dropping them into the Q&A chat. We've gotten some so far, but we have time for more, so drop them in there. And let's start with one that came up a couple times, different iterations of it throughout the call. People are curious about the Ripple ruling, the recent ruling, and how this impacts Stellar in any way. Denelle, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think more importantly, not just Stellar, I want to talk a little bit about how it impacts the industry. I think that what we've been waiting for in the industry, and frankly, what even lawmakers have been waiting for in the US and abroad, is some clarity around things. And we've had a lot of activity with respect to the SEC in the US, and that's created, I think, some confusion on a global basis about how to view these kinds of digital assets. And I think the most important thing about that ruling is the fact that it was very clear that a digital asset in and of itself, just the digital asset, is not a security. There has to be more that can turn it into a security, and clearly you can do. Like you can transform this digital asset into a security if there's investment contracts and things that you pull together to be able to make it so. But the digital asset itself is not. That is just a huge, huge piece of clarity to have in this ecosystem and in this industry, not just domestically, but also internationally. So I think that the ruling is it's very articulate, it's very clear. And I think the steps with which the judge, with Judge Torres, went through the analysis was really awesome for the kind of things that we need to see here. I think it actually is going to impact even some of the legislation that was being talked about and discussed here in the US. And that was market structure legislation. And so I think that for Stellar, for any layer one out there, for anyone building in this ecosystem, it's just really important to have that kind of clarity and to be able to leverage the seriousness with which the judge approached it, but also the stability, to create that stability in the ecosystem. So really important for us to have that. It's something that many of us believed for a long time, that the asset, a digital asset in and of itself, is not a security. And so being able to see that in writing in a really important decision was something that I think transforms a lot of the discussions around these kinds of issues about security versus commodity in our industry.
Awesome. Thanks, Denelle. Okay, Justin, maybe this is a question for you. A lot of interest and people wondering about Soroban. So what types of tools and projects do you still envision to be created with Soroban? And are there any projects so far you're really excited about?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, when I think of Soroban and I think of my view of it, I've got this strange bird's eye view. Like it makes me think of something like one of these world building or city building games like Civilization or something. And Soroban gives you like the firewood and the gems or the sort of iron ore and the water, and people are sort of like taking it and they're building the granaries and the chapels and the fortifications. And I'm sort of watching a whole world come together based on like the raw materials that Soroban provides. And for me, what's interesting is that like all of those things that people are building on top of Soroban, they stack together to actually make use cases possible. And so what I've seen a lot of that's exciting is basically all of the sort of fundamental building blocks are coming together. So, the DeFi protocols that allow people to provide liquidity, that allow lending and borrowing, along with like sort of the oracles that are necessary to provide those DeFi protocols with information about what's happening off chain, or the indexers that allow like sort of applications to see what's happening on chain in order to give it to wallets that users can use to actually interact with the protocols that are using the oracles and the indexers. All that stuff is like coming together as we speak to make an entire new civilization. And it's really, really cool. I mean, I think in terms of what I can envision ultimately is like, I just picture a world where there's like a really slick app that has an awesome user experience, a wallet that allows a user to like interact with a DeFi protocol in this like sort of seamless, transparent way where they can use the awesome access that Stellar has to get money onto the chain. And then once it's there, they can actually do something with it in the wallet because it's connecting to all of the different projects that are being built on Soroban. And to me, this is the sort of final realization of what blockchain can do, where Stellar is headed, how access can really empower people, and it would unlock a whole new part of like financial infrastructure for a whole new audience of people. So it's this sort of a beautiful, my end world, that the thing that I'm really looking forward to is when there are these like beautiful apps that give people that access and that are sort of connecting that whole civilization together. I think it's going to be awesome.
Beautiful apps. Love it.
I know what I said was profound, but it doesn't
Carolyn,
matter.
you're-
I don't need this
I
much
think
quiet.
Carolyn's muted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carolyn's
Sorry. I just couldn't even speak after that answer. All right. So a couple questions about Meridian, one related to developers and Soroban and like opportunities to participate at Meridian and get involved. And then Jordan, maybe one for you about Idris Elba being at Meridian, and just like any more context you'd like to share about that. So maybe Jordan, we can start with you and then kick it over to Justin for the Soroban question.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. And I'll even go in a little bit in Soroban, and Justin, you should pile on. I think in terms of Idris Elba, I think the reason we thought he was such a great fit for Meridian around this idea around unlocking human potential is, if you look at his kind of good works efforts and really his personal philosophy, it's not just, hey, we need to give money to places. It's how do we set up systems to empower locals to solve local problems? If you look at the work he's doing in Ghana, which is where one of his parents are from, about setting up a system that would allow film production to happen there, there's a lot of film production in South Africa. Like, hey, well, why can't we do this in Ghana? And so this idea of setting up systems and fixing things so that will allow all people to realize their potential, that's kind of what makes him go in terms of where he invests his non-acting, non-DJ time. And that's a great fit for SDF as a whole, and in particular, what we're doing around in what we're doing around Meridian in terms of that theme. And obviously, I'm not going to lie that I'm a huge fan of The Wire, and to be, a little star power with a little sizzle to go along with that stake is always good. In terms of Soroban at Meridian, and again, Justin, pile on. We've invited every single developer and company that is building on Soroban to come and speak and share at Meridian. It is a huge focus for us. There will be demos galore. It really just will be an incredible opportunity to learn all about Soroban, not only from people from SDF, who will obviously be able to talk about it, but really the ecosystem that has been building on it that we've been talking about already, right? That all this ecosystem that's been built along with the platform, Meridian is going to be kind of a Soroban party in terms of getting all that information together. And so, between hearing from Idris, hearing about Soroban, we're working on, again, a range of speakers from within and beyond the Stellar ecosystem. There's so much happening both within our ecosystem and in the space as a whole. We are having to be rigorous in terms of the program and what we can cover and what we can't. And so we're really excited about it.
Nice. Thanks, Jordan. Justin, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I think that was great. For me, my dream is that like this Meridian is like Soroban's Woodstock, right? Like everybody should be there. And then later on, you'll look back at it and you'll be able to say like, I was there. This will be a moment when for the first time, this like formation of an ecosystem really like materializes all in person, all at the same time. And so, yeah, the goal is definitely to like open the doors, to get people on stage, to get people talking, to get people connecting. And I'm very excited for it.
Less rain than Woodstock. We have a rooftop patio. It'd be a bummer if it rains.
All right, don't jinx us. Okay, Denelle, maybe you want to take this one about the SDP. Someone is just wondering how many organizations are currently using it. SDP is the Stellar Disbursement Platform, by the way.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. The SDP, by the way, which we are open sourcing and will be available so that everyone can use it. This isn't some proprietary tool that we're trying to maintain just with those who work with us. But right now there are at least, I think that there are at least like 5 projects that are actually working with the SDP, but most of them we can't talk about yet. But those are just projects that are working on it from the standpoint of trying to use the SDP to deliver either aid or payments that they want to be able to leverage. There's also another component of folks who are looking to host the SDP for those folks that that don't have the ability to host it themselves. So when you think about, either aid organizations, large or small, that don't maybe have technical teams that can actually support the SDP, there are entities out there that are actually going to be hosting this on their behalf. And so this is a really fun area for us because it actually gets to the very, very core of our mission, which is that creating that equitable access to the global financial system and getting aid and getting value to people instantaneously, actually faster than instantaneously, is a pretty remarkable thing for us to do. And so the SDP does that. As I've said many, many times before, the SDP is amazing from the standpoint of the aid distribution and in that context, but I also love it for payroll and for paying gig workers. And so there's entities that are actually leveraging the SDP in their development right now to be able to pay those gig workers and to think about it as payroll. So can't talk about many of them yet, but those are things that we see happening and we're just so thrilled to be able to see it. So more to come in the use, and also more from the standpoint of getting it out there into the public from an open source standpoint.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Denelle. And thank you to the attendee who gifted us with the perfect closing question. Any other exciting projects or developments that are happening by the end of the year?
Well, I mean, by the end of the year, I'm hoping that we actually, that Soroban is launched. We don't have a specific date yet, but that's a big focus of ours to be able to make that happen with the ecosystem. So we have that, and we have lots of really exciting wallets that are coming on to MoneyGram access. And then the SDP, like being able to have folks leverage the SDP in a way that is working with us, but also once it's open source, everyone can sort of use it. So those are like my big focal points for us. I think that if you think about what's most important is the notion of utility. Utility, utility, utility. Utility is what brings all of the work that we're doing here at the SDF and with Stellar in this ecosystem, but also just in blockchain holistically. Utility actually brings it to the masses and proves the value of the technology. And I love that we're seeing so much of that. And so that is going to be the big focal point, at least from my standpoint. Justin, Jordan, you guys may have others.
As the CMO, I will use this as a repeated plug for Meridian. So we're going to have a lot of news there that we'll be talking about, both in terms of the immediate news items, as well as obviously beginning to talk about 2024. And so it's another great reason to come to join us at Meridian.
And if I could just say one more thing, I think that in the US, one of the things that's really important is this stability and creating this tectonic plates to stop them from moving with respect to regulation. And so the Ripple case goes a long way with respect to digital assets themselves, but also we're seeing momentum. And I've said this for the last 6 months, maybe even 9 months, that we really, really, really need, and we really should have stablecoin legislation domestically. We already have some really nice work with MiCA, and we're going to be able to flesh that out from the EU standpoint. But I hope, and I am still a big believer, very bullish on the fact that we're going to see stablecoin legislation by the end of this year. So I'm looking towards that. We have some big dates coming up in July with respect to markups of those bills. And so hopefully we'll be able to see something like that get to a close by year end. So more work to be done there, but good work for us.
I like it, manifesting some good news. Okay, with that, we are actually over time. So thanks so much to everyone for joining us. As always, we'll have the webinar recording and the report posted on the quarterly report landing page on stellar.org later today, and we'll also have a blog recap up before the end of the day. So the best thing to do to make sure you don't miss anything is always just to follow us on Twitter at stellar.org or at stellar.org. And thanks. We will see you again next quarter. Bye, everyone.